This is House Planning Help, episode 235. Hello, I'm Ben Adam Smith, and this is the podcast for you if you're interested in self-build, because I'm exploring what houses we should be building in the 21st century and trying to break down the major roadblocks that may get in our way. And coming up today, we try to encapsulate what it's all about to build a house, because I'm going to tie together a number of clips right from the beginning, from day one, when I started researching my house build, all the way through the process to when everything's completed and I've got my feet up. Well, perhaps I haven't got my feet up just yet, but that's what we're trying to do today. More details in a moment. I'm going to make this quick because we've got a lot to get through today. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you. We did this last episode, but also, what exactly do you want in 2019? We're recording this right at the end of the year, and the focus is going to be, again, on you next year. How can we help you? Certainly, I have more time on my hands, and I'm going to be spending more time with our hub members. I can't wait. If there's something specific that's troubling you on your journey, I would love to find out more information about it. Just get in touch through the website, houseplanninghelp.com. There's a contact form there. You can email me, or on social media, all the usual places. Probably my favorite is still Twitter, at Ben Adam Smith. Come and follow me there, and we'll have a chat. And a little bit later on, I'll tell you about our Facebook group. This is all free, but it's another place to come and network with like-minded self-builders, and also to flag up if there's an interview you want me to do in the new year. So today's episode is an unusual one because I'm hoping to, through the medium of my audio journal, tell the story of my house build. And that means I need to get out of the way right now. But I just wanted to say, sometimes this may not make sense because you're just hearing a load of clips. But that's what the bits of silence are to do, to indicate a passage of time. So we're going from day one to completed house, 6-year process. Are you ready? And I've always had a love for buildings. I love looking at architecture. And so I thought, well, this would be really interesting because it is an aim in my life that I want to build my own house. Why don't I go and investigate all about it? We were travelling in the car the other day, and my wife has suddenly started showing an interest, which I suppose is fair enough because we're going to be living in this house together, and has decided to tell me what she actually wants from the house, which in a way was always what I wanted from a house. So we thought we'd never see any issues between what we would like. But then I've tried to keep an open mind about what we should be doing with housing in the future. The whole point of the podcast is looking at better ways that we can do things. And if we are stuck in a way of thinking, then working out why. Why do we want to do it that way? And so I'm actually married to someone who wants to do it all, to have an old-fashioned viewpoint on it. So I've got my work cut out. I do still struggle a little bit with the aesthetics of modern architecture. But as I've gone along, I feel I'm learning. I'm understanding why you might want to do these things. So when we look at modern architecture, when it's done well, it really does take advantage of light, of space. It harnesses the sun as a free heating source. It doesn't overheat because you're shading it in the right way. The materials are chosen because they don't have much impact on the environment. It's the best choice of those materials. So whereas a traditional way might have been the best way that they were thinking back then, we are using our best thinking in our best buildings now. We had a friend over to dinner at the weekend, and a few drinks were flowing. But our friend was asking me about the podcast. So I started to explain that we covered a lot of topics in connection with sustainability, and that I'd focus quite a lot on Passive House just because I find it really interesting. And it was at that point that my wife started explaining what it was. And I just thought, don't say anything. I'm just going to see how long this goes on for. So I kept quiet, and there she was, happily explaining how great it was at energy efficiency, and how the heat didn't get out because the insulation and air tightness and the mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. This is brilliant. I'm loving this. So maybe we are turning a corner on what we're wanting in the Adam Smith household. This marks 1 year of research that I've been doing. I've been doing this podcast for a whole year. And that's quite exciting. It's a little bit scary too, to think that I've allotted myself 4 years to be inside this more sustainable, energy efficient home. and one of those years has gone. I am going down I'm not sure whose route this was. It could even be Kevin MacLeod from Grand Designs, the idea of doing 3 years of research and planning of what's going to go on in the build, and then 1 year of the actual build, rather than the other way around of 1 year of planning, let's go for it, let's build the thing, and then running into all sorts of difficulties and it costing 3 times as much. My wife and I are expecting a child. She's pregnant and looking to give birth. I think the estimated time is around about September. But wow, it just feels so special. We've seen our friends go through this, and you know it's going to be different because until it's happened, it's just not real. I'm coming up to my 38th birthday now, and a couple of years ago I set this big goal to create an energy efficient home before I turn 40. So that gives me 2 years left. I feel this last year I've drifted a bit. Things have been busy, they always do tend to be. And I'm sure I have built up my knowledge a lot, but I'm definitely ready for some action now. We've 2 years of research, and I know they always say 3 years of research and 1 year of actually doing the project, or a lot less, a lot more focused, but I'm not sure that I've been doing exactly what they've been suggesting in that. So I want to move things on. And I've had this really weird situation. It's some good fortune that is mixed in with a weird twist. So I just want to be open with you and tell you about it, because for some time I've been a part owner of a piece of land. It's nowhere near to me. It's been a piece of land that I actually, I'm silent shareholder. I can't do anything. And for about 20 years, they've been talking about selling it, and I haven't been that interested. Secretly, at the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, maybe one day I'll be in a position to do something with it myself and get some houses built there properly. But then out of the blue, this land has just been sold. So I have definitely benefited out of this. It's certainly going to bolster my budget when I come to build the house. We've been looking for land over the last couple of weeks, just the preliminary search for it, and I've used a couple of different ideas. First of all, the plot finding websites and local agents who might have some land, and that has actually been quite disappointing that there is land out there, but my goodness, is it expensive? And often the nice plots, I suppose if you did buy that land, you would have to build a huge house on it just to make it all worthwhile, so that when you finally sold, it wouldn't be a waste of that space, which I find a little bit upsetting. The house I'm in at the moment, which is pretty good in terms of space, is the only thing we're missing. We're right in the middle of the town. It's an awesome location. I'd love to stay here, but trying to source that plot nearby is really, really tricky. So I've realised that probably we will have to move out of the town. Even then, it's going to be difficult. So say, for example, my current house is worth £300,000. In my mind, if my budget for the whole project is £500,000, including build and land, that's doable. That should be somewhere. No. Because this week I put in my first bid on a property. And my bid was £400,000 for the land. It's just because we thought, this is it. But that would have been crazy. I would have really been stretching myself in the early stage. So perhaps it's a blessing that we didn't get that in the end. It was a bungalow. It was south facing. It had a beautiful garden as well. We chatted to the neighbours. It just seemed like it was right. It felt right. That was the most encouraging thing, that I've never had that feeling looking at any other plot at all. At the beginning of the podcast, I say about my personal goal is to create an energy efficient home before I turn 40 in August 2016. And every time I say that, in my mind, perhaps there's a little voice saying, you really should stop saying that. I wouldn't do, because you're never going to make it now. You've only got a year. And so I am feeling the pressure. I don't mind failing and not hitting that target if I've gone all out to do this, but I do find it very frustrating. And there are other pressures in my life. That the current house that I'm in is too small, and I'm trying to use that pressure to force me somehow to get this. I know that we're not fully flexible because we do want to stay in a fairly small geographic area, which I know is limiting the choices that we have. We probably looked at about 10 to 15 different houses, plots, mixture of different things. We put in one offer so far, which we lost out on, and I wish we'd fought harder because I know that we could have got that now. But It came fairly early on in the process and it looked like a plot. And I think that's part of the issue, that when something looks like a plot, then guess what? You've got lots of competition. Everyone or similar people are trying to get hold of it. This is feedback that we found quite interesting because initially they wouldn't reveal how much it had gone to, and we pushed them along the lines of, well, look, we want to learn here. We keep on missing out. We'd like to get building this house. How much did it go for? They had 27 bids in total for this plot of land. It's about 0.12 of an acre. Not huge, but that's why we liked it too, because they weren't going to build 100 houses on it. Let's say there were 26 bids that were probably in our range around there. And they said one stood out a mile, which was around about £100,000 more than everyone else. See, how can you compete with that? We still put in a fair amount of money because that's just our area, really, and got down to the last three and then just got pipped to the post. It's very, very frustrating. Perhaps what's worse about this one is I got a really good feeling, not only because I liked the area and thought, this is it, this is going to work so well, and it's flat plot and hopefully not too many challenges for a first timer like me. But unfortunately, it just didn't happen. And this is the podcast for you if you're interested in self-build, because I'm exploring what houses we should be building in the 21st century and trying to break down the major roadblocks that may get in our way. My personal goal is still to create an energy-efficient home before I turn 40 in Whoa. Newsflash. I am now 40. Oh, this was not the episode I wanted. I hoped we'd be somewhere completely different. Instead, I have failed in my quest, and majorly at that. Around about October, we went away on holiday, and just before we left, we saw something on one of the online websites and thought, well, that looks interesting. The trouble is, it's way too much money, and that was it. We got on the plane, went away. So a few weeks passed, and it was still on the market, and that was strange for a couple of reasons. First of all, virtually everything that we see tends to go very, very quickly. Now, some of this might be the impact of Brexit, because people don't know what's happening in the market and maybe are slightly more cautious than they would have been at the beginning of 2016. There are other things. It was a bit more money than some of the other plots that we looked at, which is why effectively we were ruled out. But we thought, for whatever reason, it looks like it's a nice plot from the photos. It's an area we know we like. Let's go and check it out. And you have that moment where within seconds of arriving, when you walk around and think, this is pretty good. This has a lot of the things that we're looking for. It's a flat site. It looks like it should be away from flood risk areas. Quite big, actually, compared to a lot of the other sites. A view at one end and not too close to the road at the other. There is a main road that goes by, but because this plot is quite a wide plot and there's a specific place where the house would go, so you'd be set back from the road. So all of these things look positive. Definitely something that we were going to investigate some more, even if it was just to get knocked back. One of the tricky elements here was certainly the budget, that it was beyond our budget, and I think ever since we started, we played a dangerous game of just sliding down. It's something to do with what you want to pay versus what you can pay. And that's what sends you down this slope, is you see that what you'd like to pay doesn't get you what you want. And so you start to slide down this slope. And this was definitely the edge of where we could be, but it was the edge. So let's give it a go, shall we? And so we put in our first bid and it was just knocked back straight away. As I mentioned, that every piece of land that we've put bids in on before, it's gone over the asking price. And there's just no way we would have been able to buy this piece of land if it had done that, or gone anywhere near the asking price. So he came back with another offer of, we could buy it for this price. That was over what we could afford. And really, we're at the stage where we had to put in our final offer. So we weren't sure which way this was going to go, but it got accepted. And the story will move on from here. You just can't network in 5 minutes. It takes time. And actually being stuck on my own project and thinking, I wish it would move on, I just continued this networking and speaking to people. Then, as I mentioned, through Regen Media, for example, being affiliated with the Passive House Trust for the UK Passive House Awards or helping them on other projects has just been great because, of course, I get to go out and see some of these projects. And in doing that, I meet the people, I hear all of the stories, put together videos, and sometimes that is a great learning opportunity in itself and find out various different things. So all of this, I'm saying, is actually a great foundation of when it comes to the time of needing to select an architect, the hard work had already been done. Let's get to this. We decided to go with Parsons and Whitley, headed up by Chris Parsons, who's not in fact an architect. John will be the architect on this project. But this is what's quite interesting because Chris always talks about his position is more on strategy and planning and all these things. I quite like that. That resonated with me. I've obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I've visited lots of projects and I've spoken to many happy people, whether it be for social housing or self-builders, and just seen the quality of the workmanship, which I think is very high. I've mentioned this a few times, but one of my biggest concerns for this project is that Kay doesn't like new builds. She loves 100-year-old cottages with lots of character that have developed over time. However, she loves the modern living on the inside, houses with lots of light, all the other benefits that we know and like from that way of living. So how do we reconcile this?
Well, it is a challenge, there's no doubt about that. I think, how do we address it? Well, first of all, getting a good understanding of the stylistic approach, which Kay has already given us of what Kay likes. And that, that's fine. It's for me, it's about distilling what it is that you like about that, and trying to make sure that we deliver it. We might be a little bit subtle about how we actually make sure that it's still a modern home in terms of, all the facilities, all of the way that you use it, the spaces that are available. So they do present conflicts because very often the kind of stuff that you like is driven from a sort of an architectural vernacular, which is quite limiting in terms of the spaces available, because it was basically driven by how big a tree can you find. Because, if you're going to have a rafter, if you're going to have a beam, you're limited by the size of the tree you can get. And that's how those types of properties, and that's why they all have quite narrow gables, for example, generally quite 6 metres, maybe 6.5 metres as a maximum gable. They'll have quite a steepish pitch, generally, because in those days we didn't have such good materials to get rid of the water. So all of that stuff is what drove the sort of vernacular that you like. And it's possible to still reflect that with modern design,
without making it look like a mock Tudor.
And that's, for us, that's exactly the challenge. To understand and distill the bits that you like, but compromise that with the spaces that you want. And it's not impossible, but it is a challenge. I'm not pretending it's not.
I like a challenge.
And I think Kay probably on her journey, there are certain things she likes, like the windows, which perhaps I felt like that 2-3 years ago, whereas now I think, well, a window, I want to be able to look out of it. I don't want bars going all the way across. So addressing that as well, it comes into this.
Yep. And all design is a compromise. Everything that we do, every bit of stuff that we produce has a compromise in there. Now, it might be our compromise, it might need to be your compromise. But as long as those decisions are taken, with your eyes fully open and you understand why we want to do what we want to do, then you're going to need to possibly make some decisions, as are we. So we're at the beginning of this journey, not at the end of it yet. So we need to, with a pencil and a bit of paper, we need to try to deliver the spaces and everything else that you're giving us in a style that is what you want to see, certainly is not offensive to anybody. We'll still get you planning permission, of course, as well, which is the third elephant in the room here, because we've got to satisfy the planners, never mind what you want and what we want to do.
We have leant towards a barn-like appearance as this lends itself to the rectangular form we have followed, and the frameless appearance of passive house windows tend to exhibit works quite effectively with the barn aesthetic. Plan-wise, I hope we've been able to tick off most of your specific requirements. There are possible questions over the separation of kitchen and boot room and shape size of the snug, but I hope we've created a basic starting point for you to respond to and to begin the conversation. Have a good weekend, and I look forward to your thoughts and comments.
How do you feel?
Nervous.
You wonder how much they can actually tune in to what you're thinking.
And I like the fact he sent it at 5 o'clock on a Friday so he could send it
Yeah, get home. I like it. Okay, so do we have to load anything up, or is that it there at the bottom?
Ooh. Okay, I don't dislike it.
Well, that's always a good sign.
I think I quite like it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I quite like it. See, I quite like the way the garage is. I
Yeah.
think that adds quite a lot of character onto
It does add a bit of character.
Is there anything else attached?
There is.
Oh, here we go.
Here's our floor plan. Okay, so we have... Oh, he's put the snug there. Interesting. I thought the snug would be further to the back of the house. Where's the kitchen? The kitchen's there, you're
Kitchen
right.
in the
He's
middle
put
of the house.
kitchen in the middle. I think it looks like a cross between a sort of a barn and a farmhouse.
Yes.
Yeah, which is exactly
that. Wasn't
that's
intentional.
that's what we're looking for,
Yeah.
really. You know, something that can
Okay,
reflect
right.
the local vernacular, and you've managed to keep all the form simple and stuff. And I think also the balcony on the other side and the
Yeah.
porch just give it character, don't they?
Yes.
Without
Yes. Yeah. Well, I wanted to give it some definition.
Yeah.
There's the two aspects, aren't there, with passive house, that you need to try and keep the shape pretty simple, really, to get it to perform, with not too many twiddly bits and add-ons. But at the same time, if you do just keep things looking too straightforward, then there is an aspect of
Looking like a
it
box.
looking too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what we've done does help to give it a bit of definition to the elevations.
Obviously, the materials are going to make a big
Yes.
difference to how it looks, but
I mean, I did make a bit of a stab at materials to begin with, but I've knocked them off, actually. We had a colour version.
oh, did
I
you?
felt that was, but I felt that was a little bit of a step too far at the moment
Oh,
before I
okay.
get the plan. I thought I wanted you to concentrate on the plan for
Okay,
really,
yeah.
in the first instance, and then we'll perhaps move on to the detail of what materials we could use. But there are options obviously there to look at, and I can show you those
Cool.
options and how it might look.
Okay. Well, we're happy with the outside of the house. We don't have any specific changes to make.
All right.
However, like Ben said, some of the inside changes might alter it. I'll start with the upstairs because that's the easiest.
Okay.
So the only change that we would like up here is to actually lose the shower room. I know we said we'd like a shower room and a bathroom.
Yes.
But
No,
looking
we did
at
wonder whether it was
a bit overkill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the materials on this, we had lime render again, wood, some brick on these various elements, and something interesting going on at the roof at the back as a way of bringing just a little bit more light into the neighbour's property. It's called a cat slide. I would say it's a kink in the roof. I'm sure there's a better way of describing it. And Kay's just asking how this works.
Right, so by sloping it, you've cut off the top bit of the
You can move that,
roof.
reduce the pitch on that.
Clever.
Knew there'd be a
It is
reason.
clever, but it creates a few constructional problems.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got to now put some sort of beam or steel support at the point where the pitch changes.
Likely going to be along that line there. Hopefully is where we like to make that.
So
So it's all the back.
this kind of becomes structural. So these have got the shallower ceiling in.
Which is fine on the first floor, but the difficulty is going to be taking those loads down onto the ground floor. There isn't really anything convenient.
So
down
we'll end
there
up
to-
throwing a steel beam through here, all the way through there.
Does
to
that
carry
affect
those
the
loads.
rooms?
No.
It's all
It's all in the sea. You wouldn't see it.
right.
That's an area we've got to do a bit more work on from an insulation point of view. That's the one that makes it a bit more complex from the passive house standard, not insurmountable. And then down here, I think that's what John was just saying, this is still 1800, so that's about 6 feet, whereas this will be up at 2.3, 8'6", so 7'6".
You're 5'10". What are you?
I'm 6'1",
6 foot?
1.
5'7".
Can you stand up?
Does it matter?
I want to get an idea.
Okay, so it's not dissimilar to having the ceiling probably down here,
Okay.
like this is here.
Yeah, but a little bit lower. But only at the far end of the house by the window. So at this
It
end.
then comes away like that.
Okay. So
and,
you.
and they're in these low status rooms, your dressing room and
Yeah.
two bathrooms. So it's not in. They're not
So the dressing room would have rails and things there anyway. So the lowest part of it, I don't want anything too high because I won't be able to reach. And the bathroom and the ensuite,
You
that's
have to think
okay.
about where you hang your evening dresses.
Yeah. Oh yes, I have lots of those. So that's okay. That wouldn't make it. It's not one of these rooms that you have to duck into all the time.
So with both of these schemes, we're fairly confident that we're addressing the potential loss of amenity. And the planners will be interested in this. In our case, it's very much about overshadowing and losing that view of the sky. Chris had heard back from the planning officer who was making some more positive noises. So remembering that we'd only just got this decision that it hadn't been granted on the Wednesday, and then on Friday they sent back these new comparison drawings, and then after the weekend we'd heard back and it was sounding a little bit better. They thought that what we needed to do now was just to amend all those plans, get them submitted again, and they wanted to reconsult with the neighbour. It's been an eventful week, started by opening Hub 2.0 and bringing in our current members. Then we had the arrival of little Emily, which was fun. I've just picked up my son now, who's hurt his knee. Did you hurt your knee?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Sit on the way, darling.
Oh, now we've got visitors. We've got Nanny here, but we've also got some news.
We have planning permission!
Woo! So did Chris call you?
No, I've just seen it on the planning portal on the council's website.
Cool. Eagle-eyed. So Chris hasn't even contacted you.
No.
Might be worth contacting
I'm
him.
just about to call him. I really, really like Georgian windows that have, grid down it with 8 panes, but that won't suit our house. So that's not the sort of thing I'm looking for, because we don't have a Georgian style house.
No.
I'm more looking at like a triple framed window at the most, or even just
so
one.
by that you mean broken it down into what we would call 3 lights?
Yeah, or even 2. But what I don't like is one great big single pane.
But I think if you could live like that, you would actually realise what a huge benefit it would be.
But that's a performance window. If that is a triple glazed window, performance is green building stores, cost-effective range for retrofits and low-energy new build projects. It's got a U value of 0.85. If that means...
What it does do, though, is because there's less glass and more frame, the number you quoted me there is simply what we call the centre pane U value. So it's like a typical U value for that window.
Right.
What we actually model is the amount of glass and the amount of frame in every single window is what we model into PHPP. And what you find is the more frame that you put in and the less glass that you put in, the worse performance you get.
Yeah.
That's not to say that we can't do it, but you need to understand the rationale, if you like.
I think I've just pinned a picture of a apartment I did recently in London where we did jumbo herringbone.
Ooh.
And it looked so good.
Did it?
Really nice. So it's sort of, bigger than normal, and it just looked... It's almost like, it sounds like the kind of look you guys want. You don't want the traditional parquet. It's just a softer, bigger feel, less busy.
Yeah, I like
anyway,
that.
we can muck around with loads of samples, but I think something like it's just really to show you a sort of more contemporary.
The floor.
Does it have to be one floor, or will it split? What do you think on that for our living space?
I think for the living space, it should definitely be one floor.
I think so too.
Right, good.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that will make it really seamless and nice to pad around. I think it'll feel nice and it'll look good.
Yeah, I agree. So, kitchen-wise, the most drop-dead gorgeous kitchens you've ever seen. That's quite nice.
John will come up with the concepts, and then perhaps myself and Chris and John will all sit down and think, how are we going to construct this? I think it does help in a way when you've got the finishes of the building envelope already selected. So yours, for instance, was a render, but you had a brick plinth, things like that. That then you start thinking, well, this would be perhaps more cost effective and simpler to build as a cavity wall. Traditionally the whole industry is very typically used cavity wall constructions, although in your instance the cavity is much wider than perhaps you traditionally use. But I think that makes sense when you're doing a very traditional vernacular building like yours. There are other things you could use, timber frame, for instance, would stand up with render quite well. There's other things you have to consider, though. There's ventilation gaps and other things that perhaps in this instance we thought timber frame wasn't necessarily suited for. And then you've got speed and things. At the time, blocks were fairly easy to get hold of, so we thought that's a good idea to progress the traditional cavity side.
At 12 o'clock, we're going to have the prices that we're expecting back in an envelope. We will open them. We'll probably ask you to open them, just so you can see that they remain in a sealed envelope. We've got a form that we immediately fill in with what are the numbers. We'll check to see whether they've qualified their tender in any way, because occasionally they might go, oh, we couldn't get this roof tile, so we've priced for this, or we haven't allowed for so-and-so. If they qualify it, then we need to understand exactly what that qualification is so that we know what we're comparing when we look at these initial prices. You'll recover from a short period of shock.
Well, that's it, because this is a surprise for you then as well.
It's as much a surprise to us as it is to you, I'm afraid.
Okay.
And then, there'll be a discussion as to, well, that's good. Actually, I can afford to have all those things that I wanted, or maybe it'll be, or maybe I can't have so-and-so because it's looking a bit expensive. So we'll then have a discussion as to how that fits, how the prices fit with your budget, and determine how we might go forward from there.
Because it is tricky with our build too, that being a passive house, there are certain bits that we need, and we've obviously got quite a simple form factor, and what isn't simple is for a reason and for planning and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we've, you told us what your budget was right at the start. We've done our best to try to design within that budget, and we've kept it as a simple form, so that should produce some, reasonably cost-effective prices. But we have been seeing some horrific tender returns just lately, I think we've advised.
Our budget is £400,000, and there wasn't a great amount we could do than wait. We have to let those minutes tick by, and midday came about. We started with the envelopes, and Kate was given that task of revealing the figures.
Here comes the first one. So we're opening up the smaller one of the two. It was received on the 31st of October. Proposed construction, blah, blah, blah. Address. I hereby offer to execute the works described in the schedule of works for the sum of £612,000.
Ooh.
Ouch. So £612,234. So, the big one. They are coming in at £885,871.23. Over double our budget.
Is this Hertfordshire prices, do you think,
Oh
some of
my
this?
good God. Wow.
The worrying thing is they are the most qualified out of the list, so they know what's involved.
So we've opened the two envelopes, and we move on to contractor 3. It's the email next. Are we going to get lucky? Short answer, no.
And they are coming in at £744,385. Oh, how disappointing.
A key factor that a lot of people end up going with is just reducing the size of the house. That makes sense, doesn't it? If you have a smaller floor area, we started out with our calculations of it'll be £2,000 a square metre, fewer square metres of floor area, so you can see how that will easily get things back on track. There's a flip side though, and I'm sure if you end up in this situation, you will have a bit of heartache here. You'll be tugged in different directions. There is the obvious emotional side, first of all, and maybe just in your position you won't be allowed or afforded the opportunity to think about this too much, but you've designed your dream home and you really want to follow it through if you possibly can. You don't want to start changing things. But if you're absolutely up against the wall, which I have to say we are not, we can afford to pay more, we're going to pay more. And the key reason I think behind that is the value of the house. That is the finished value. So I'm trying to keep the value all okay, and I'm concerned that if the rooms, you could take out a bit of space, we could probably have exactly the same rooms. But if it starts to get too pokey, I think you could actually wipe off a lot of value. So if we can invest that now while we're building, we want to go ahead and we can do that.
Another exciting day today because we are signing the contracts with our main contractor, and that means work will begin in a matter of weeks. Very surreal to be at this stage. Our start date is the 2nd of January 2018, so we hope we'll hit the floor running next year and just have a great year. I'm sure there'll be many more highs and lows, as there seems to be in this process.
A big part of my role is manager, or managing the works and mediating the trades. And I always see myself as a bit of a pacifier that between trades and clients and trades and trades, and make sure everyone gets on and it all gets done in the right order and the right way, with hopefully as little problems as possible.
And how do you like to split your time then? When a project like this is underway, what would you be doing on a day-to-day basis?
I don't really schedule my time out through the works. It just depends. In the early stages, when the brickwork and blockwork's going on, I have a bit more time to get on top of materials and things in advance. As it moves forward, I'll probably get a bit more productive myself, hands-on. So I just do the organisation as and when it's required. When people ask questions, I answer them and sort the information out. I do have to tend to do a bit in the evenings and weekends to catch up on the paperwork side of things.
Things move quickly. You've just done so much dreaming. You want to build this house, and perhaps you've faced a few brick walls that you've had to bash down to get your land and then get your finance sorted and all the regular bits and pieces, put the team together, that so much of this it's meaningless. It's just in the air. And then finally you start building. And if you're like me, you're going to site regularly every 2 to 3 days, and you just notice the progress. You can see it happening every day. Something has changed. And so this is an illusion, really, this first point. Of course, it's not going quickly. You have a schedule. It tells you exactly when things are going to happen, when you're going to move into the house. That's the big advantage of going down the contractor route. We're using our architect as the contract administrator as well. And you just feel like you're in safe hands. I think I have reached a significant point in my self-build. And do you know why? It's because I've been asked this question more than once as I've bumped into various people. What are you going to do after you've finished your house? Perhaps this is to do with the photos that I've been posting online. It's starting to look like a finished house. We're approaching the second fix now. And really, it feels like we've gone over the crest of a wave. You have lots of decisions to make, and it ebbs and flows a little bit. It reminds me of if you're working in a restaurant. If you've ever done this, I'm thinking back out to Australia when I was backpacking and I was working in a bar, and you get the Friday or the Saturday rush when everyone would come in. You'd be pulled in all sorts of different directions. Where's my food? Back into the kitchen, back outside. And then suddenly you get on top of the situation and everything calms down again. It feels like one of those situations, and quite exciting as well, because this is all very surreal to think that we might actually be living here. We're actually going to live in this house soon.
Just got back from site, and today Kay and I met with the electrician, so we've seen the electrical plans and think we've got our head around them. And then it's amazing how many little changes we've made. Hopefully they are the right changes, but just quite a draining process. As with any decision you have to make, it does take a bit of energy, and there's always a reason for changing it or not changing it. And as I mentioned, quite a few decisions that we have changed overall. Are we ahead of schedule? It's a question that we've asked on and off over the last few months, and our contractor will never mention we're ahead of schedule. Even if we ask that direct question, it's more, we're going to finish on time. And this has become a little bit of a running joke. What is Mark going to say? However, recently we ran into quite a big issue. Now, this is fairly late in the process. We've got a house, it's largely fitted out, and we were just having the services connected. Everything had been organised. However, when the water company came to connect us to their water main, they couldn't find their water main. How crazy is that? You'd think they'd have everything documented and would know exactly. Then we got into a bit of trouble. We're still a priority case with the water company, but that means nothing because they believe the water main is in the road alongside the gas main. And when we had to close the road and do all of that stuff, They were saying that their pipes were in the pavement, and obviously they discovered that they were not there. So they have admitted it's their responsibility, their mistake. They're going to pay for another road closure. However, it's not that simple, because what needs to happen now is the local authority need to go through their process. They need to advertise the road closure. And in the best case scenario, this means that we're probably going to finish as anticipated on that contract date. Whereas if anything else goes wrong now, there could be a delay after that. So very weird, something completely outside of our control has cropped up. And this is where I think Mark from experience knows, never say you're ahead of the schedule, not until everything has been finished, everything has been finalised.
When you spent 6 years firstly dreaming and then planning and then moving on to actually constructing your new house, then I think you're well overdue to get excited about it. I'm looking forward to the comfort that my home built to Passive House standard is going to afford. I hope that's in summer as much as winter. One of these things is you just have to move in, don't you, to find out for yourself. I don't think any passive houses struggle in the winter. It's the summer that it's all about, making sure that you've got that cool house. When everyone else is sweltering, you should still be able to use all that insulation and have a lovely cool house. And you can get it modelled in PHPP. In fact, you'll have to do that, won't you, if you're building to Passive House standard, to find out what your overheating risk is. And I'm very happy that mine is at 0. So that should be good. But I won't say anything until I've moved in, lived through a couple of summers, and know that all is good.
It's the end of the day. The house is quiet once again. And we've had a few firsts today. We've done our first wash of clothes and hung them up in the utility room. What else? We've switched the oven on for the first time and had a very high-tech meal of pizza. We put the dishwasher on because my parents have been down here, been very, very helpful, looking after the kids, joining in on all the flat pack fun. And so we have a functional house. I think virtually every room, apart from the snug, is performing its function, even if it's not quite there yet. So that's quite exciting. We've only been here a day, and already that's happened.
So this is me jumping back in at the end to say, that was it. The whole story condensed in one episode. You didn't think we could do it, did you? Yes, of course. There will be plenty of holes in the process, because if you think I've been going through 6 years of material there, of audio journal and various different clips. So did it all make sense? Anyway, we've got some show notes to accompany this, which have links to the individual episodes that we did about my own projects. It's quite a nice reference point there. So if something has particularly interested you, you can click on that and find out more information. So today you will find that at houseplanninghelp.com/235. As usual, if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, you can do that at the bottom. And we've got a summary there of everything that we've talked about. It really is a summary. It's not going to go into too much detail today. houseplanninghelp.com/235. Just wanted to finish up today with a mention for our free Facebook group. If you head to talkselfbuild.com, it will redirect you to our Facebook group and ask you a question. If you answer well, you'll be entered in and you can join in the general shenanigans, all sorts of things, networking with like-minded self-builders who have their heart set on building a great eco-home. There are often questions in there. I try and come in when I can. Obviously, my focus is the hub, but if I can get into the Facebook group, I will as well. So talkselfbuild.com is where you can do that, and it's going down a storm. That's it for another podcast and another year, 2018. Thank you for helping me realise my House 2018. What will happen in 2019? Well, I hope you'll stay with us at House Planning Help. The House Planning Help podcast is produced by Regen Media, content that matters.